Alright, so as y'all may have noticed, I have not been putting out as much content lately. And part of that is because I'm trying to move over to YouTube, right? And doing that process it's more time consuming. But part of it too is that I have been in a really strange place artistically since the TikTok ban. Because when TikTok went down, I was forced to reckon with what I created. Because when you've been doing this as long as I have, you get into a rhythm, right? You get into a routine. This is what I need to put out for the day. This is what makes you money. This is what doesn't. And it becomes almost second nature. Like it reroutes your fucking brain. And when the TikTok ban happened, I had to reckon with the nature of art and where I see myself as a creator, as an artist. And I've found there is this tension. And it is a tension that I think has been existing in the queer community for a very, very long time. But I think because of the right wing, some things surrounding it have gotten very muddy. Because I've noticed that once something becomes a right wing talking point, it becomes something that is taboo to talk about. And here's the thing, I think we need to talk about this. Because I'm seeing Black people have a very similar conversation. A conversation about what is the culture. A similar tension that I'm seeing with like the Kendrick Drake situation and the sort of like larger what that means, I'm seeing in the queer community as well. And when TikTok went down, I had to sit there and I had to ask myself, what is queer culture? What is queer art? What does it mean? What does it say about us? Because there is one thing I am seeing. And that is that, for the most part, queer art is not rising to the zeitgeist. Something is wrong. And that is insane to me, because queer people and people of color have always been the creators of culture in this country. We are what moves things forward. And Black people are still doing it. And they're having that important conversation about what is Black art. And an important part of that conversation is assimilation. Now, obviously, I cannot speak on the struggle of Black people. I am a milky boy. But I am noticing this tension. I know I kind of seem all over the place. It's because I've been all over the place on the subject for a while. My brain is fucked up. I've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on this stuff. And that is part of why I haven't been able to create anything, because I feel like I'm paralyzed at this standstill. So I've noticed there are kind of three competing groups. Now, obviously, this is kind of a Venn diagram. No one is going to fit into these groups perfectly. We are not a monolith. But I've noticed these kind of three competing ideologies. The first is the pure assimilationists. You know, your white gays who want a spouse and kids and to live in the suburbs, you know? You're like Pete Buttigieg types. And even to some extent, like your RuPauls. And their whole ideology kind of revolves around, okay, we need to gain assimilation and acceptance. And that means creating this watered down, commercialized version of ourselves that we can incorporate into rainbow capitalism and essentially sell gayness as a product. That is how we achieve rights. That is how we achieve acceptance. And then you have this other group. And it's like the old punks, the kinksters, the edgelords. And they're like, no, we have historical roots in all of this. We are fundamentally counterculture. Fuck these people's acceptance. We don't care. We don't want it. Fuck them. They've never done anything for us anyway. And a lot of these people tend to be contrarians. A big problem with them is that they don't tend to learn things. They want queer culture to kind of stay the same, which is basically, you know, in dusty dive bars. And that the assimilationist gays are fighting for all the wrong rights. But then there's this third group that has kind of arisen in the last 10 to 15 years. It is largely the result of my generation, who was kind of trapped between the two, but really had no guidance from either group. The assimilationist gays were like, get in line, and a lot of the old punks died out during the AIDS epidemic. So it left this cultural gap. And the queer aesthetic that kind of rose out of that, and this was true amongst millennials in general, was this very cutesy, pastel-colored, I don't want to grow up, let's make ukulele music and little frogs, and everything is terrible, but we're going to pretend it's okay. This is when we started getting the little, like, memes that are like, 5 ways to respect someone's pronouns. It has teddy bears and rainbows on it. And it's built around the same kind of acceptance that the assimilationists want, but it's built around trying to get the same rights as the old punks kind of want. And what you've kind of ended up with is this very online movement that doesn't really entirely know what it is. And it is incredibly, incredibly puritanical and sexless in a lot of ways. And it is counterculture in the sense that it is delving into places that queerness wasn't allowed before, which is softness and sweetness and childlike nature. But it is also about heavy conformity to what it means to be queer. These are the people who simultaneously don't think kink or cops should be at Pride, which begs the question, who do they think should be there then? Just other people like them? And there is this constant tension, this constant pressure between these three groups. Because you have, like, the edgelords who are like, fuck you, bring things back to the ballroom, bring things back to, you know, punks in dirty bars nailing their dicks to boards. Fuck trying to get these people's approval. We don't need it, we don't want it. We are perfectly fine sucking people off behind the adult emporium. And then you have the assimilationists who are like, if we stay this way, we are never going to get our rights, people are never going to accept us, and we're going to live in this hellish nightmare forever, get a nice job in finance, put on a suit, adopt a couple kids, and everything will turn out just fine. And then you have this third group who is screaming at the assimilationists for assimilating, but are so pearl-clutching and sexless and unable to handle anything that makes them uncomfortable that they can't handle the kinksters and the edgelords either. And it has become increasingly obvious that we don't know where to go from here. And now we are up against this massive threat, and no one knows what to do. And what we've created is a counterculture vacuum. And it is a counterculture vacuum that fascists have stepped into. They have started presenting themselves as going against the system. And here's the thing, I don't know where to go from here. I don't know what it means to create queer art in this day and age. I think the cutesiness and the assimilation, I think it has degraded queer art. And I say this as someone who has a fucking Steven Universe tattoo, you know? But like so much queer art that I see now is just begging, like, please accept me. Look, I'm cute and tiny and harmless. Please don't be mean to me. And I don't think that's doing us any favors. But I also know that things can't be the way they were before. That we do have to grow and change and get rid of a lot of the really bad shit that did exist in queer culture when it was like that. And so I'm kind of at a loss. Where do we go? What is queer art in an age of fascism? Because rainbow capitalism is dead. The edgelords have fallen. And the tiny frogs, at this point, they seem to just be there to help us ignore reality. So what now?